So let's get started. Welcome to the Voter Education Outreach Advisory Committee. Let me put my camera on. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Thomas. Hi, everyone else on Zoom. Let's move on to the next slide. I hope you can see us clearly. If you're on Zoom, please share in the chat your name, organization, affiliation, and our question of the day is, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
So I'm going to jump in here and introduce myself. I'm Diane Leeds. I'm with San Francisco Peninsula People Power. Yahaira is again from Thrive, and Petra Silton is from Thrive as well, and we're the co-chairs. The reason for the question of the day is, I don't know if you know that last Sunday was National Ice Cream Day. And even more interesting, I learned was President Ronald Reagan who decreed it as a national holiday back in 1984. So if you're on Zoom, if you in chat, you can put what your favorite ice cream is. And if we could now go around the room here, because it's nice to see so many people here in person, if you could just introduce yourself, what organization you're with, and again, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? So, all right, well, I'll start because no one. So I'm Diane Leeds. I'm with San Francisco Peninsula People Power, and my favorite flavor of ice cream is Grater's ice cream with mint chocolate.
Want to hand it over to Pam?
Oh, yeah, it's going to go around. Let's make it simple.
Okay, we're going to do okay, so Pam Jones, I am a member of and representing two organizations, Bellhaven Empowered and Menlo Together. And my favorite ice cream is something that has really good vanilla that has lots of caramel in it.
I'm Sarah O'Brien. I'm with the elections office. And my favorite is chocolate peanut butter, but the best one I've found is part of the Rocky Road collection by Dreyer's. I know it sounds odd that it's Rocky Road collection, but they're special ice creams. If you like that chocolate peanut butter, that's the one.
I'm Petra Silton. I'm the Senior Director of Programs with Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits. So great to see so many people here and there. And for me, kind of the rocky road of my childhood from Baskin Robbins, right after you go to the beach.
Hi, I'm with Service League of San Mateo County, and I am their jail program coordinator. My name is Adriana Ponce, and my favorite ice cream is strawberry.
Hi, Sue Degree from Parka for special needs and chocolate.
Chris Bowie with Silicon Valley Focus and anything that's coffee flavored.
Lear Zerka, I'm the CEO of Civica. We are a government relations and public affairs firm. I really like dark chocolate gelato.
My name is Paul Barry. I'm Deputy Director for VEOAC. My favorite flavor ice cream is hot chocolate.
Santa Lavera, Associate Director of Advocacy at KIPP, Northern California, KIPP Public Schools, Northern California. My favorite ice cream is Marianne ice cream, all-time vanilla. Best flavor they have. So good.
I'm Mackenzie. I'm also with KIPP Public Schools Northern California and Director of Policy and Advocacy, and mine is the chocolate chip.
Hi, my name is Jesse Clyde Burleson. I'm the in-custody program coordinator at Legal Services for Prisons with Children, and vanilla works for me.
I'm Eric Sapp from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and I also like mint chocolate chip.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Vanessa. I'm the Inca City Case Management Supervisor for the county jails. And my favorite ice cream is a hard one, but I think I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, so I'm Nancy Goodman. I'm also in chocolate chip, so that's a good. I'm with Vixen San Mateo County and People Power, like Diane and Pam. But also I was fortunate enough to tour the jail with the sheriff's office last week, and then the youth service center, which is juvenile hall, and the girls camp yesterday last week. All of them are really interested in registration in the jail. I know Service does that. And so I invited our contacts there to attend this as well.
Thank you, everyone. And I know Diane, we just had some people join us. We just went around the room here in person, going around and saying our name, organization affiliation, and our favorite ice cream flavor. If you haven't had a chance to do so yet, please put it in the chat. We'd love to see what you all are into. I see some, I'm gonna read here. Ana Lee from Casa Círculo Cultural loves passion fruit sorbet. Thomas Day is a strawberry kind of person. Then we have, this is a new one, salted caramel from Becca. Just a lot of options. And my name is Yahya Ortega and I work with Thrive Alliance. I'm their policy and equity manager. And my favorite flavor of ice cream has to be mint chocolate chip.
I'm going to take this moment to interrupt and let everyone know that Yahira just got a promotion. That is her new title, Manager of Policy and Equity. And well deserved.
And that's Thrive, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Beth. Hi. No worries. All good. We have drinks and everything else behind there. We'd love to hear what your favorite flavor of ice cream is and what organization you belong to.
Okay, Beth Von Amster, she, her pronouns. I'm with the ACLU North Peninsula chapter. And my favorite flavor of ice cream. Is chocolate.
Okay, and I see more people are joining in the chat. Travis, he also enjoys Bluebell mint chocolate chip. Okay, so a lot more people have been adding their responses in the chat. Let's move on to the next phase of our agenda. But before we do so, if at any point anyone on Zoom is not able to hear the people in person, please put it in the chat and I will make sure to fix any technical problems. You should all be okay now, but can I get a thumbs up from Joanne? Oh, I see Joanne, okay, and Valerie. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right, moving on to the next slide.
You take on the phone?
Yes, Mike, you can hear us? Yeah.
Introduce myself. On the VEOAC, the San Mateo County Voting Accessibility Committee, and also San Mateo County Paratransit. And my favorite ice cream is blueberry cheesecake.
That's a good one. We haven't heard that one today. Thank you, Mike.
Is anyone else on the phone?
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Go ahead.
Well, you're.
Who's on the phone?
Bill.
But you can put it in chat, Bill.
Bill can put it in chat.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bill. All right, let's move on to the agenda. The agenda, we already did the welcomes, then we'll go over to elections divisions update from Sarah. Then we'll have our presenters from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children who are here in person. Thank you for making it out. And the last portion of our meeting, we'll have some time to discuss the elections plans share out for San Mateo County.
Any other announcements? Drive,
that's next slide.
Okay. So we'll move over to announcements from Thrive.
So Thrive, as I hope all of you know at this point, is the association where Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. And we have lots of different events, lots of different things we work on, and everybody is welcome to everything. And you can check out things at our website, but I just want to point out a couple of things that are coming up. One is Thrive Rise, which is Resilience in Shared Emergencies. It's the co-ed for San Mateo County. So we help organize nonprofits in the face of emergencies, both to prepare for emergencies, during emergencies, and recovery. And we meet monthly. And again, anyone is welcome to this. The next one, we're going to be talking about heat and resilience for heat, because we figure that's timely. And then another one of our programs, the Thrive Wellness Wednesdays, and this coming up time is actually on a Monday, which is a little confusing, but I'm sure you guys can all get it anyway. It's we're going to have Cora, which is an organization that focuses on domestic violence, to talk about what to do with around domestic violence. So it's a very basic training, but will give more understanding for what to do if you encounter a victim of domestic violence. In addition to that, we have the next event for this group. We're doing something slightly different this year, which is in addition to these regular VEOAC meetings, Yahira is pulling together a brainstorming session to really work on different kinds of voter engagement. So it's not going to be recorded. It's going to be really a put your head down and come up with different ideas, share different ideas. It's going to be in August because I don't know if you noticed, but things are already ramping up for the next set of elections, and we want to be prepared and really have time to think through strategy. A lot, as you know, does get decided in the primary, which is in March, which just isn't that far away.
And I can tell you more about it after this event.
And the elections office, although we love them, is not invited.
So don't think we're not coming out of any particular reason. It's just.
This is a focus on the organizations, what the organizational strategy is. So it's not official. It's Thrive and People Power bringing this group together.
Can you all mention a date, or are we keeping that for Sarah?
It's up there.
But she can't see it.
It's not a secret.
Change the date and time.
There'll be a perimeter though. Okay.
All right, thank you, Petra, and I hope you all can make it. I will be sure to share more information on what the plans are and the agenda for that after our presenters. So before we move on, I want to tell you all about all these amazing opportunities that we have coming up at Thrive. If you haven't heard of our translation hub yet, here and now is the time to listen in and listen to what kind of service, and it's free for you all. We are providing free interpretation and translation thanks to SBCF, who is Silicon Valley Community Foundation, to all nonprofits within San Mateo County who are interested in providing language access to their community members. The vision for this is that local nonprofit sectors in San Mateo County are the ones that prioritize community access by consistently and mindfully offering professional language translation and interpretation services for all their programs and services. So if you are wondering where you can find more information about this, visit thrivealliance.org or email me. I am the representative. I am managing all language services for the nonprofit sector in San Mateo County. The next opportunity that you all can learn about and save the date for is our Racial Justice Summit, which is coming up November 14th through the 16th. And more information to come, but if you're interested in all things Nonprofit Ready Hub, go to our website and you'll be able to find our newly officially launched resource page that we have on our website, and it has articles, it has guidelines, it has different resources for all nonprofits to use and implement the Ready movement initiative within their own nonprofit space and community. So any questions on those two initiatives, let me know, shoot me an email, talk to me after the meeting. I'm here to help you all. Let's move on to the next one. That is it. I'm sure we had, there was one, give me a second. That was it. I'm sure your slide didn't say, unfortunately, but you can tell them
Another
more
save
now.
the date is on October 11th. We'll be having the second annual Climate Summit for San Mateo County, which, and everyone's welcome. Our co-hosts are Nuestra Casa, Climate Resilient Communities, and Rise South City. And it's going to be held in South San Francisco, and you will be hearing much more about it because it's really exciting.
Yes.
Okay.
All done with announcements.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah O'Brien from the Elections Office to give us an update on all the stuff that they're working on.
Well, there really is an election coming up. It seems really soon to us now. It used to seem far away. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I have to be close up here.
There you go.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about our election administration plan, and that includes a voter outreach and education plan. It should be up on our website by Monday. I just want to give you kind of an overview of it today, and that's sort of how we're operating. And very little has changed in terms of the first part of this plan. which is the technology. We're still using Dominion's machines. We're still printing, everybody is printing their own ballot if they come into a vote center. We're still doing vote by mail, that everyone will get a ballot in the mail, but they don't have to use it. So those kind of things, you know, are pretty steady, you know, since we got the new equipment in 2019, I think it was. What's changed a little bit is our voter education and outreach plan. Unfortunately, one of the things we looked at is the 20 lowest turnout precincts from November 2022's election. And they will look very familiar to everyone. I wish I could say it wasn't the same, but the numbers may be different because we've changed numbers of precincts, you know, we consolidate, things like that. But the locations in our county with the lowest turnout include East Palo Alto. I'll start with the south. So East Palo Alto, Fair Oaks, Redwood City, a part of Redwood City, a part of Menlo Park. So that is, you know, the East Palo Alto has, I think, 5 different precincts are among the lowest of about 10 precincts. So it still seems we need to concentrate a lot of effort in that area. The north, I was surprised, unincorporated Broadmoor. Broadmoor is usually like this, you know, to us, it's this proud little city that if we write down your mailing address as South San Francisco or Colma, I mean, they call us. All 2,000 residents will call us and say, you know, we're in Broadmoor. So I was disappointed that that was among the northern part of our low precincts. And again, familiar, Daly City, 5 precincts in Daly City. So Daly City, East Palo Alto are you know, not so good as far as turnout. Parts of San Bruno and parts of South San Francisco. We just continue to plug away at those locations. We keep trying new things in terms of voter outreach and education and see what will work. Suggestions, like when you come together in, what is it, a couple weeks, you know, if you good ideas, welcome. You know, our idea is, you know, we're going to be concentrating on, in addition to those precincts, individuals with limited English proficiency, individuals with disabilities, unhoused and housing unstable individuals, young people between 18 and 25 years old, our justice involved residents, and our residents who've returned to the community following the completion of a prison sentence, maybe on parole. They are now receiving a voter registration letter in the mail. If oddly enough, I would have thought that if you're on parole, excuse me, that the address would be available, but not necessarily. So we do send most of the people who return to San Mateo County a letter letting them know that they can re-register to vote. So that's sort of the, you know, you probably again recognize all those groups, that those are areas where we're really concentrating on. Let's see, the messages for March, you know, the voting period, it's the more days, more ways to vote. You can vote February 5th to March 5th. You know, we have accessible vote centers with multilingual services. You know, we have the official, you can vote by mail, use an official drop box, visit a vote center, or use the RAVBM, the remote accessible vote by mail system. Let's see, you can in person use an accessible ballot marking tablet or ask for a paper ballot. Same day voter registration available. One of the biggies is no party preference. That is, your ballot will not include presidential candidates if you do nothing. So we will send out a letter in, let me see, it'd be mid-October to approximately 100,000 people in our county who are NPP, and letting them know that the ballot they will receive if they do nothing will not have a presidential candidate on it. And let's see, we have to wait because October 23rd was the deadline when the parties have to let the Secretary of State know if they're going to open their primary to other parties. So we have to wait until that before we can mail the letter, but we'll hope to mail it right after. One of the reasons we want to mail it right away, late October, if we can get them back, because will include a way for people to, postage paid, return something. It's still all, in the past, we've done a letter with an envelope, but perhaps it'll be a postcard, I'm not sure. As we identify that though, if we get them back by the end of the year, then we hope to be able to give them the right ballot the first time, that they don't have to get a non-party preference ballot and a X ballot that lets them vote in the presidential primary. The list has to go to the printer pretty early with all these different parties and things that go out. So a lot of people will end up getting 2 ballots. So that's another part of education, is that don't use your NPP ballot if you want to get another ballot, because if you vote, you voted. There's no second chance. The second chance is November. Let's see. What else? Let's see, the 2 candidates who get the most votes, regardless of party preference, in terms of US Senator, Representative, State Senator, and State Assembly member, move on to the general election in November. Very different, of course, than the presidential candidates. In county contest, if one candidate receives 50% plus 1 vote, they win that contest. And that office won't appear on the general election ballot in November. And my final message for March is the Elections Division is hiring. We need many temporary workers, and we have posted a job post on the county's website, on our website, SMC ACRE for Assessor, County Clerk, Recorder, Elections, which election time becomes SMC Vote. Right now, if you type in SMC Vote, you will get to SMC ACRE, and you can look at volunteer and employment opportunities. So please point your friends and family who need temporary positions there. Let's see, so that's really the temporary messages, the March messages, but we do want to have voter education on more days to vote. You don't have to wait until election day, because we still do get the most people and the most ballots that day. We want to talk about signature verification. There's some people who are concerned about it, but what we're concerned about is, because we feel we can identify the signatures, but if you don't sign your ballot, we don't. We have to send you a letter. We call you, we email you, we do anything we can to try to get you to sign a form to say, yes, that really was you. So we need help with making sure people know they should sign their envelope. They can't have someone else do it. I'd say my typical one is the student away at college, and their mom will sign either their own name or their child's name, but we recognize it's not the child's handwriting on the voter registration form, and it becomes a situation to be dealt with. And we want everyone who does vote to actually have their vote count by signing their own envelope and by being sure to sign it. Some of the things we're looking at for voter education is really talking about why vote. We have a lot of people have, said, why should I vote? That's been, something you have to fight sometimes in those precincts that I mentioned earlier. You know, it's like, is there a reason? Is there anything that's going to change? Well, you know, is anything going to change if you don't do anything? So I'm collecting some different thoughts so that people in the community, I've been asking, you know, why would you vote? Why vote? So anything you have to contribute there. One of the things I noticed is that DMV registrants vote at lower rate of registered voters than online registrants, at least this was in 2020. So actually that was part of Mindy Romero. She did a report about DMV. So that's where I got that information. So that's just one thing.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Because at the DMV, you have to sign up versus online, you're proactively going there to sign up?
I think so.
They may not even realize that they were signed up.
I can testify to that. I just was at the DMV, and when it prompts you when you're filling out for ID or driver's license, if you're registered or not, and that's your opportunity to get registered. And then you might not think about it again after that. That's probably why, you know, it's a low turnout.
You know, so that's another area of, you know, hey, what can we do? You know, we actually tried, we did ads at the DMV. You know, they have a screen that says, you know, G24, you know, go to window 5. Well, you can't have audio, but we did have a video that, you know, talked about voting and encouraged them to go to our website for more info. You know, it's hard to say, but, you know, we have all kinds of numbers on it as to, you know, how many people potentially saw it each month, because we did it for several months in 2020. You know, it's hard to get, you know, they only sell so many spaces, and, you know, the spaces tend to be bought for a long time. So I don't know if they'll be available coming up, but it's one of the things we'll look at.
We who are volunteers could phone bank them 10 days before the election. And that's probably, no, it's right.
Sounds good.
I mean, I think these are all great things that when we have the brainstorming session in August, is all the things that Sarah is pointing out is something that we need to discuss in terms of how, you know, we've identified some of the issues. How can each of the nonprofits and other folks doing voter outreach address it and, you know, improve the turnout?
Part of education is letting people know that we have what we call facsimile or reference ballots, and they're available in Burmese, Hindi, Japanese, and Korean. So, you know, that's one of those things. A lot of people online, it's not like I don't know, it doesn't say optional as to what language you want your election material if you register online. On paper, it is in a little box that says optional choices, you know, about what language, you know, what's your ethnicity, what's, you know, whatever other questions they have for statistics. But disappointing that the paper registration still makes that optional. You know, right now, I can tell you, we have 16 people who've asked for the Burmese facsimile ballot. You know, 47 Hindi, Japanese and Korean a little bit higher. But so again, if you work with people in those different languages, please encourage them. We'll try to, you know, questions about the facsimile ballot. It's in that language and it matches the English language ballot. It's not a ballot to vote on, but it's a match so that you use it as your reference as you vote on the English language. Now, if someone sends that ballot in, which on rare occasion it happens, it is part of, you know, a requirement that we have to actually copy it onto an English ballot and then staple that other one in the back in case there's some reason it has to be checked again. But, you know, we don't like having to, you know, copy any ballots. You know, you want to have the original in place. But, you know, there's certain rules, so that's that. Let's see, just a couple more, I swear. I don't know if anyone knows much about the county's new unhoused app for request. I just heard about that and gonna look into it myself and try to see how we can reach out to people who, are unhoused. Again, the students, they don't vote. They pre-register okay. Sheriff's office, well, we're working all together, service league. We've got the presentation today and we'll see what we can do there.
Do you have stats on what that's been like so far?
I would say, I think it's been better over the several years I've been at the elections office. I'd say maybe 60 people took advantage of it in November of 2022.
Out of any clue the percentage? Just curious. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
You mean
I don't know,
60
maybe
in the San Mateo County jail voted out of the entire population there?
Which is about
There's
1,000.
there's a lot of room for growth.
A little over 1,000. Okay, thanks.
Is there conditional voter registration or are they expected to register 14 days before?
we do work with the sheriff to get the registration forms to them in advance. And then as soon as the sheriff brings them to one of our offices, it could be our office here usually now at County Center. And then we give the ballot, the sample ballot voter information pamphlet, the easy voter guide. And I think that's all that can go together for each voter. And then they, have the 14 days left to review the material before they turn in their vote. They have to mail it. The ballot comes with an envelope, prepaid postage. They have to make sure that they get it, and we try to emphasize that they get it before the last day to the outgoing mail, so that it meets that requirement to be postmarked by election day.
They themselves don't put it into a post box.
I don't know how they do mail.
Well, again, I think we might, these are probably
I'm
really
so
good
sorry.
questions to
Sorry,
discuss when we
sorry.
have our presentation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I went to the jail one time on a visit several years ago as part of a county program for citizens to see how everything works. But I have not, been able to tour or find anything out since then. So
That's very helpful. Thank you, Sarah. And I do want to be mindful of everyone's time.
Yes.
We have time for the last question. I see Bill has had their hand up for quite a while. Can you answer their question for Bill, and then we can move on? I want to be mindful of the presenters as well. So
Yep.
Bill, go ahead and ask your question if it regards
yes,
to
I was looking for it in chat.
if it's anything that Sarah was discussing.
Oh, is it in chat?
So unmute yourself, Bill.
Yes.
So what's your question?
Speak. We hear you, speak.
We can hear you, Bill. Can you hear us?
Maybe he didn't.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So did you have a question?
Oh, you wanted my question. Yeah, that goes back to what was a different woman's face under Yara. It wasn't Yara, it was
Sarah?
she's with the county, right?
Sarah.
So we're talking about outreach, and is she still there?
Yes.
She's still here. Yes.
Okay, so the question I had was, with all these different targeted groups, we're talking about young voters, older voters, people with disabilities. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about people who've been felons, criminalized, voting rights for them. What kind of targeted outreach strategies are going on, or what plans are there in the works to see that we're successful? For example, how do we identify where these people are, and once we've identified them, how do we reach them effectively? Do they effectively get reached?
Thank you, Bill, for your question. This is actually a great question. And I know that we will go into it just a little bit. Sarah doesn't have, I mean, you heard a little bit about the information that she does have. We have our presenters here who will be going into some of the information and the initiatives that they support. Let's pause on your question, and if you still have a very specific question for them after their presentation, then you can go ahead and ask.
I'm gonna give like a quick answer though. Just Bill, I want to let you know that, from the elections office, we'll be purchasing advertising in various language media. We've done things like banners for the cities to put on their main streets to say about the election. We go to the high schools. You've gone to the high schools. We try a lot of getting out there with the community-based organizations who know people in the neighborhoods that have those lower turnout precincts. And it's just a constant battle. It's hard to change people's minds.
Yeah, well, just for an example, I would just add, like with the Spanish-speaking communities, say for example in North Fair Oaks. I mean, I know we have people in this meeting today from North Fair Oaks, and there's community groups, community organizations that are very tied in with the people in that community. They speak the language, they're of the same culture. That would be an example of a natural organization that I think we'd want to coordinate with in order to reach that particular community.
And that's, yeah, that's something that we've been doing pretty much for the last several years, where different community groups have been getting grants through the elections office to do that outreach. And again, I think the meeting on August 16th,
yes,
where we're going to do a lot of brainstorming, is really going to address that question specifically about what communities do we need to be.
So the meeting you announced for the 16th, that sounds like the event that's going to address what we're bringing up now.
I would love to see you there in person, and we will go over meeting details after everything else. So thank you, Sarah, for all your updates. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. I'll hand it over to Diane for the upcoming.
Yeah, so it's my pleasure to introduce folks from the Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. They're a group that is really working on folks that have been incarcerated or are incarcerated. So I'm going to go briefly through just introducing the speakers we have today, and we really appreciate them all being here in person. So Paul Riley is the Deputy Director of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and he focuses on the fines and fees that are among the other legal monetary sanctions that burden formerly incarcerated individuals. He grew up in Bayview, Hunters Point, where he's seen a fair share of social problems over the years. One of the interesting things is he was got a fellowship where he was trained to be a community organizer, and he helped draft the language for ACA 6, which was the state constitutional amendment that allowed people on parole to vote, which affected 50,000 people could now vote that couldn't before. Jesse Burleson is the in custody program coordinator, and he's also with sort of the sister organization, All of Us or None. He grew up in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco and was in and out of juvenile detention facilities as a youth before being sent to adult prison, where he spent time between the ages of 18 and 49 until he was released due to the compassionate actions of the children of the man that he had killed. Eric Sapp is the staff attorney at Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and his work focuses on the rights of currently and formerly incarcerated persons and their families in the areas of visitation rights, employment, voting, and jail conditions for people with disabilities. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who will start the presentation, and then it'll pass on to Jesse and to Eric. So Paul, take it away.
Sure, thank you for that introduction. LSPC was originally founded in 1978, and as of 1988, we received our 501c3 status. It became a organization. All of Us or None is actually a project of Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and that began in 2003. We are a grassroots civil and human rights organization fighting for the rights of formerly and currently incarcerated people and our families. We're fighting against the discrimination that people face every day because of arrest or conviction history. The goal of All of Us or None is to strengthen the voices of people most affected by mass incarceration and the growth of the prison industrial complex. Through our grassroots organizing, we are building a powerful political movement. Our mission from the very beginning was to fight for the full restoration of our civil and human rights with a main focus on employment, housing, education, and voting. Not only do we need a seat at the table, we need to set the agenda and center our voices in the work. Nothing about us should be decided without us. Building on decades of voting rights work begun in 2003, in 2020, we successfully led a campaign to restore voting rights to 50,000 Californians on parole through the passage of Prop 17. Sometimes the effort is as important as the outcome. Securing the right to vote for 50,000 Californians on parole is a remarkable accomplishment, but the overwhelming majority of people in jail are presumed innocent since they have not yet had their day in court. So it is paramount that they still have access to the polls, and that is why we are here today.
Thank you, Paul. Before you move on, can I remind you all to turn on your cameras for the Zoom? I know that they're catching the side profile of you, but it would be lovely if we can capture the front facing as well. Thank you.
I think, Jesse, are you? Or Eric?
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm gonna try to share screen here. I'm gonna give the boring part of the presentation today. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of voting rights for incarcerated persons in California. Let's see. You'll see my screen. Hold on. All right. So just a reminder of the election code. Currently in 2101 of the election code in the state, which implements the constitutional provisions regarding the eligibility of registration to vote. Persons not imprisoned for conviction of a felony are entitled to register, and imprisoned, and I'll say a little bit more about how this definition came about. Imprisoned means currently serving a state or federal prison term. Now, what exactly that means, it is sort of the product of a long struggle, and one that is not entirely over. So the Constitution currently, and this is as a result of Prop 17, which Paul mentioned a moment ago, which eliminated the disqualification for persons on parole, meaning that persons on parole, once released from prison, are eligible to vote, which was passed by the voters in 2020. Changed Section 2 and Section 4 of Article 2 of the state constitution, and Section 4 states that a state or federal prison term for conviction of a felony is a disqualification. Now, that means that a person who is sentenced to jail for a felony is still eligible to vote, as well as a person who is on pretrial detention in jail or civil detention, or someone in jail as a probation condition. Now, how the probation condition eligibility was established was a result of litigation, which is listed here, League of Women Voters versus McPherson. LSPC was also involved in that case. That was decided in late 2006 by the Court of Appeals, First Division, and found that the persons who were in jail as a probation condition were eligible to vote. And remember, this is pre-Prop 17, so at that time, persons both in prison and on parole were ineligible. That litigation came about due to a change in the state's interpretation of eligibility prior to decisions taken by then Secretary McPherson, the interpretation of the state was did not extend the disqualification to persons in jail for probation, but there was a change in the sort of policy at the state level, which ultimately took the courts to overturn. Meanwhile, in 2011, there was the massive realignment legislation, which transferred a lot of persons who would have been serving in the prisons to jail sentences. This resulted in an issue as to whether someone in a realignment situation would have eligibility to vote, and because that legislation also created new forms of supervised release known as mandatory supervision and post-release community supervision, there was a question as to whether persons who were not incarcerated but under those supervision categories would be allowed to vote. Consequently, there was litigation, which again, LSPC and a number of other groups, including ACLU, was involved in, called Scott v. Bowen. We won at the Superior Court level in San Francisco, in Alameda County, in which the judge ordered, the judge found that persons on mandatory supervision or post-release community supervision were eligible. However, the then Secretary of State or the then Attorney General representing the Secretary of State appealed that. That appeal was eventually dropped, enabling the lower court's ruling to stand, which ensured that persons on those supervision categories were eligible to vote. Meanwhile, there was very soon there was legislation that clarified that persons in the realignment categories sentenced to jail for felonies would be eligible to vote, and that legislation was known as AB 2466. And then last but not least, in this line of progression in 2020, Prop 17 was passed, enabling persons on parole to vote. So taking a step back in time, so the 1849 Constitution restricted voting to white male citizens. It also stated that persons convicted of what was called an infamous crime would be ineligible to vote. In 1879, the next iteration of the Constitution repeated the infamous crime disqualification, also added some anti-immigrant and racist elements, additional racist elements to the state constitution, which would take a long time to eliminate. Meanwhile, 14th Amendment, the US Constitution created, and then of course the 15th Amendment as well, established various rights that in the 20th century led to significant litigation at the federal level, establishing some landmark cases of voting rights, including Reynolds v. Sims and Harper versus Virginia State Board of Elections. But I want to just briefly touch on some cases that arose in California at that time. In 1966, a case called Otsuka versus Hite, which was interpreting the previous version of the Constitution, basically the 1879 provision, describing infamous crimes, which was subsequently eliminated in the early 70s from the state constitution. But at the time, the California Supreme Court interpreted that to give it a sort of limiting construction that said that only moral corruption or dishonesty would only a crime whose elements conveyed what it called moral corruption or dishonesty would qualify for the disqualification under those grounds. that sort of lives on not as a disenfranchisement provision, but as a electoral disqualification, because, you know, under current election code, you can't be a candidate for office, for state, local office, if you've been convicted of a felony that involves bribery, embezzlement, extortion, or theft of public money. Then there was a important federal Supreme Court case, but that came out of California, called Richardson versus Ramirez, 74, which basically upheld and is still the law of the land, upheld the possibility for states to have permanent felony disenfranchisement, which is controversial and hopefully will not last indefinitely. But basically the Supreme Court position was that it is possible, even when someone is finished parole, to be permanently disenfranchised by a state, and that, at least as far as the federal constitution goes, that is not unconstitutional. Of course, under the state constitution, in this state, it is now unconstitutional. So just to bring us to the present, there is a currently pending in the legislature, there's a constitutional amendment to extend voting rights also to persons who are sentenced to state prison or federal prison as well, which would sort of complete that trajectory of getting rid of incarceration-based disqualifications that would have to, in order to become law, pass the legislature 2/3 of both houses, and then be approved by the electorate by a majority in a subsequent election. So I will turn it back over to Paul.
So on this constitutional amendment, so the last I heard, so it passed the Elections Committee and the Appropriations Committee in the Assembly. Is anything going to happen this year in this legislative session, or is it being pushed off until next year?
I do not have inside information about that. But it's a good question.
It's probably going to the Senate for a vote.
Well, I believe it has to make it to the floor first. It hasn't reached the floor yet. Yeah.
Or what, the Senate?
But we don't.
It has time
yes,
to reach the assembly.
Yeah, we don't expect it being held back.
So it has to go
It
through
does
the
look
full
like it's moving
assembly
forward,
and
yes.
then the full Senate.
Right, yeah, it's still in the committee, in different committees. It hasn't even gone to the floor.
I thought you said it got through to committees. But so the date by which it has to get through the assembly.
I believe because it's a constitutional amendment, it may be on a different time frame.
Okay, thanks.
It is.
Is there an assembly bill number or a Senate bill number for this legislation that we can track it at?
ACA
4.
ACA 4?
Yes.
What is ACA?
The ACA means Assembly Constitutional Amendment.
Okay,
That means it started in the assembly.
right, usually that, okay.
And I can take further questions at the end of the presentation, but
Yeah, usually those are usually I think they go by A, B, and SB, but I'll take ACA 4.
yes. So the A, B, and SB refers to sort of ordinary legislation.
Oh, this is something different.
For statutes, but because this is a constitutional amendment,
Okay, it's different.
a different process. One, the governor is not involved, there's no such thing as a veto, but it has to be approved by the
So,
electorate.
so if it's not a bill, does that essentially mean we're changing a law? Is that what essentially we're doing, changing the state constitution, if I follow you?
Yeah, for a constitutional amendment to the state constitution, that's correct.
Bill,
So
he
then that-
just said, Bill, that he would take questions at the end. He'd rather get through his presentation.
Okay, I'm just going for point of clarification, but I'll try not to do that.
Yeah, so I'd like to turn the floor over to Jesse.
Or actually Paul's gonna say a few words.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to speak a little bit on some of the things that Eric mentioned as well. As far as felony disenfranchisement in the California Constitution, it can be traced directly to a history of racially discriminatory Jim Crow laws passed in the 1800s. California wrote felony disenfranchisement into the state's first constitution in 1849. After being the only former free state to initially reject the 14th Amendment, extending citizenship to formerly enslaved persons, California also rejected the 15th Amendment in 1870. Congress enacted the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It determined that racial discrimination in voting had been more prevalent in certain areas of the country. Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act addresses the ability to register and vote, as well as to receive information relating to the electoral process in a manner that will ensure their meaningful participation in the electoral process. As Eric mentioned, in 2016, California passed legislation allowing those in county jails, but not state or federal prison to vote while incarcerated. These individuals were working, paying taxes, and raising families in our communities, yet at the time, denied the opportunity to help choose their representatives and shape the policies that impact their daily lives. Political candidates around the United States release thousands of ads focusing on crime, and most registered voters see the issue of crime as very important during elections. Many of the roles on the ballot, like the San Mateo County Sheriff and appellate and circuit judges, wield tremendous power over the justice system. That makes it essential for people accused of a crime who are directly involved in the courts or the jail to have access to the polls. If we look at Cook County in Chicago, 20% of voters turned out citywide compared to 25% of detainees at Cook County Jail. If an elected official does not have to rely on the vote of people who are incarcerated, then they will not prioritize those people's needs. In-custody voter registration is a way to reintroduce people inside the county jails back to civic life. Our organization is focused on informing incarcerated people about their voting rights and distributing election guides that educate people on each candidate's platform and the powers and duties of each elected position. While people in county jails maintain their right to vote, currently going through the legislature is ACA 4, a proposed constitutional amendment that will allow voters to decide whether or not we should restore voting rights to people in state prison. Assuming this measure makes it to the ballot, people inside of the county jail will be able to vote on whether or not they keep their right to vote if transferred to a state prison. Stripping the right from incarcerated people is a form of voter suppression that is deeply out of step with our values. Assuming another constitutional amendment, ACA 8, makes it to the ballot, people inside of the county jail will be able to vote on whether or not they will be forced to work if transferred to prison by way of involuntary servitude. Our democracy is stronger when it's fair and inclusive, and it's time to completely end this shameful chapter of our history. Pass it over to Jesse.
Okay, great. All right. How you doing? I don't have slides or anything to present other than talking. So what we are interested in doing is going into the county jail, helping those inside get registered. And then from what I heard from the process is that there's like a 2-week period for them to return ballots, right? So we have a registration period leading up to that time, right? Where we can actually go in and help them with the process of getting registered. And then we'd be willing to come back during that 2-week phase, right? And help them fill out their ballots and mail them in. I think everybody touched on the importance and significance of voting. I think that to add to that, most young persons incarcerated probably have never participated in the voting process. They don't understand it. I mean, they have, it's like when I was younger, I know people vote and I know that person gets elected, and then what, right? Nothing changes down here, no matter who's in office. So there's really not a vested interest. And I think that's where voter education comes in at. And I think frankly, it's gonna take people who have the same lived experience to go in and talk to them and explain to them what we've learned by going through, educational processes ourselves. I went through a year fellowship program where it wasn't just about reading, it was about participation. It was, coalition building, writing bills, going to Sacramento, and talking to legislators. And so that process was more informative and educational than just, reading about something. But I think that that even though a person may not be able to engage fully in experiences that some of us have going, through fellowship programs and whatnot, we can still convey that message. We can still convey the information. One of the things that I think like a selling point, somebody mentioned, well, what do you get? So what do you get? What's the return on your vote? And how do you get a return on your vote? Well, you don't get a return on your vote unless your vote is united, with other people's votes and y'all actually win. Get your person in there. And then, if things are set up how they're supposed to be set up, then you can see some value or some return on your vote. But what does that look like? I recently learned that every elected official or every elected seat comes with a huge budget. Every year they get a slice of a pie, DAs, they get like $100 million or something like that. And so, their constituent base who have programs or businesses or whatnot set up for those grants and things, that money goes that way. And then of course, because they are in position to, they can go right back and reelect the person, right? And then you have these other people who, may have voted for someone else but lost, or may have voted for the same person but still don't receive anything. They're in City Hall complaining, right? So, how do we, bring the issue of, I think voting leads to equity. If we can strategically, plan out, strategize around a voter, not and mind you, we are specifically aimed at incarcerated class, formerly incarcerated class, right? And there's over 1 million formerly incarcerated eligible voters now in California, according to state data, right? When they did the expungement law, they had to determine, well, how many people would be eligible? How much would it cost the state? How many, and there was like over 1 million that they've cycled through the criminal system, right? So our potential, right, is huge. Not to mention those who are connected to us, friends, family, supporters, etc. So we can make a huge impact, but it all is going to start with some education. Because you can get somebody to educate. You just mentioned some people sign up, as a voter and then don't vote, right? So we how do we get them to vote? And I think that I'm sure that that's going to come through voter education, and by them having people that they can engage with regularly, especially during election seasons, right? That can be influential in making sure that they participate. And so we think it's critical that we are able to gain support from other organizations who can help us basically get into these jails, get inside these jails where we can, do the work that needs to get done for this particular population. I think too, because ACA 4 involves, the right to vote inside the prison system. You heard about realignment. If you get, found guilty and they say, do your time in the county, you can still vote, right? But once you get sent to the prison system, you're not eligible to vote. Well, ACA 4 would change that. So people that are facing conviction and potential prison sentence now, if they vote now, they'll be voting on their own future, right? So if ACA 4 gets onto the ballot and they have a right, you know, they can participate in it and vote, they can be voting for their future right to vote once they get inside. Right? So I think that's critical. I think that that is something that you just don't hit like a speed bump. You know, it's like you're looking at this how many people it is. And once they get educated, right? Once they understand it, they'll share it. You know, like, you know, you have one guy, he knows how to fill out a form, the other guy don't, you know, and so he wants to feel important. So he's gonna, yeah, come over here, I'll help you with that, you know. And so, you know, we can build this thing. You know, I think we can do it. I spent 31 years in prison. That was mentioned in my bio. I didn't know that was gonna come out, but that's all right. But I did. I was from 18 till I was 49 years old. And so, you know, I had to go through my development inside. Voter education was not in there unless I went and crossed it in the encyclopedia, but then I had no interest in it because I couldn't vote anyway. I've never voted. I was 18 when I got locked up. What do I know about voting and how does that affect me? It doesn't. That's the extent of my understanding. There may be one or two guys around here that, you know, got locked up when they were 28, you know, and so therefore they've lived some life, or they might have been 38, you know, and caught a case or something, road rage or something, ended up in prison and like, damn, I need to get out of here. But they understand the voting process. So as an in-custody program coordinator, one of my duties is to reach out inside. I have a membership base of over 1,000 in California state prisons, and to find leaders or facilitators inside, right? But it's only going to become relevant when they actually have the right to vote. So one of the things that we're working on now is Prop 17 allows you to vote when you get out. As soon as you get an ID, you can register and vote while you're on parole. So they should have a voter education program as part of their pre-release. So before you get out, you should get financial literacy. I came out here, made all kinds of mistakes, right? Didn't know what a credit score even meant, right? Voting, you know, when Prop 17 passed, I was on parole. That gave me the right to vote. I had not voted. So then somebody talked me into going down there and I signed up and I voted and I put on that voting button and I took a selfie and posted it on Facebook, right? I voted for, it was in the recall election. I voted for Gavin, right? And then he turned around and vetoed our bill, right? So.
That's never happened before.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, but the thing is that if we can tap in, you know, to the incarcerated base and the formerly incarcerated base, that's a huge space. It really is. And you know, and so we just really, it's just about building relationships, networking, getting support for a good cause. You know, I believe in the democracy. I believe in the process. I believe that whoever, you know, designed this system, it's set up in a way to where if you're plugged into it properly, then it can benefit you. You know, but you have to utilize it, right? You know, I just, you know, encourage everybody here, you know, to if you are in a position to be able to help facilitate us getting into the jail, because we tried to get in there and they would not let us in.
Into the
We have a new
jails.
sheriff now.
Okay, new sheriff in town?
Yeah. But that's still probably going to be a process. So, but we have talked before in prior years about we need to get in, how can we get in? So
We've been trying as well, and it's.
Yeah, and I think, you know, maybe even presenting them with like an actual plan of what we're gonna do in there and a timeline for it would be helpful, right? Like I recently went into the San Bruno County Jail, and it wasn't on voter education, but they had invited CBOs, community-based organizations, to come inside and basically present to the population what services we have to offer. And so they had like, you know, 30 of us in the big room, and in there, and we were at, you know, we were luckily by the exit, but we were at the end by the door. But that didn't work out because they came in this way and they talked, they only get like 20 minutes in the room per group. And so by the time they get here, they're on their way out, you know? So we might have caught a few people, but we didn't get a lot of time with them by the time they got to our table. So I think that going in with voter education, do it solo. Don't go in, you know, like with the group. Other organizations. It has to be like a focus, right? Because, you know, we're trying to give them information and understanding that they need time to process. We may want to leave them some handouts and really just get their attention. We may have to go in there more than once. But I think that that having a timeline, like was mentioned, is you know, when they actually register and then what goes back to them and then the times that they have to fill them out and return them. Those would actually be the times, you know, because it doesn't take long to fill out the registration forms. So we could probably go and register, you know, as many people that want to register, you know, in a week or 2 or 10 days or something like that, you know, depending on you know, how it works out. Because we don't know how it work out, but it'd be like, okay, well, let's say, you know, we might could get done before that time, but what if we only got this far and this long? So kind of like, you know, 10 days, something like that.
So you get half an hour for your solo presentations first, and you have the full room, a lot of volunteers, and you have lots of voter reg forms right there. And you get people then to sign up. And then 2 weeks later, you go back again and get the crew that hadn't yet. And
Well, so that's the thing that's a challenge, is you can't just go in once or twice, because there's people, you know, cycling through the jail. So if you go in 1 month, you may miss someone who gets, you know, sent to jail a month later. So
Right.
that's the other thing that we were trying to look at. How can we set something up where you're going in on a regular basis? So you're always getting, you know, people, because you're not, you know, as I said, people are going in and out all the time.
Right, and then the people that you're referring to that are going out are coming back home, right?
Right.
Not going to prison.
Right.
Okay.
Generally, and Jesse, your boss, Melissa Wagner, is at San Quentin today, but she runs the program services for the jail, and when we toured, she was really interested in this. So that's why you came, and not to say they're gonna let you in, but they're really open to that. So
Well, maybe we can do what I've seen other people do is like.
give us your card.
Yeah, I was thinking like, you know, like when we send our thing in saying we want to go in and we have all these supporters, right? Like we all sign up and say, yeah, we support this, you know, or I don't know exactly how the in and outs work on that, but you know, like we got our lawyer here.
you've got a table full of volunteers here.
How
Okay.
does the service league do it now, Adriana? Don't you guys go in and register people in the jail?
I work through at the elections office. I work through a sergeant who's there. But, you know, I'll let you answer if you have other things.
Yeah, we'll receive requests initiating that they want to register to vote, and then we'll go ahead and pass it on to the sergeant who's in charge as well.
Wait, but they have to proactively tell a sergeant, I want to register to vote.
Or they have the people on each floor, you know, walk through and say, does anyone want to register to vote? I mean, that may happen. They're very short-staffed always. That may not happen.
Have a long list of things to do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, oh, go ahead.
I think it's worth mentioning that the difference maker in Chicago was the conditional voter registration and them being allowed to vote the same day as
Yes,
election.
thank you.
Rather than, you know, being restricted to mail in something 14 days prior to, and what it sounds like if they request to, if they have the opportunity to register on the day of. And when I looked at California.gov, somewhere on that website, it says there is in specific or unique circumstances, conditional voter registration.
There is conditional
is
voter
allowed.
registration. There is same day registration and voting, but at this point, it's at a vote center. I don't know.
But there's some petition going around now to have a law that says we have to have a vote center at a jail on election day.
Could you do that even without
Anyway.
a law? Could elections just be as a-
It doesn't tell you you can't do that.
I don't know if there are any
Yeah, so
restrictions.
the conditional
We
voter
can find
registration
out,
is
yeah.
available if we can get
To
the
jail.
mechanism to you.
If we could
To
get
the
a
jail.
voting center stationed in the jail, at least on
A
election
mobile.
day.
I mean, I know Los
Mobile.
Angeles County does it.
With stickers.
Is that a machine or is that like a people going and stationing in there or how did they do it in Cook County Jail? Was it a machine?
Well, Diane.
do it either- you can do it either way.
Diane's got it figured out how that could happen.
Our voting centers, you log on to a machine, kind of, they print out your ballot and you vote. It's
Yeah.
all right there. And
But you also
if
can
you're
fill
not in
out the
jail, you
form.
can walk in on any day and register to vote. and
Right.
vote right there.
So maybe that's something we could probably do
Yeah.
too, to those who did not return something. You like, say, for example, like when you said you got 60 out of 1,000, right? So then we go visit the other 900 and something, you know, and but I think there has to be some kind of plan. I'm thinking that to the other point is maybe send in a survey. You know, like a survey to the detainees, to the people that's inside, and ask them, you know, if you had the opportunity to register and vote, would you care to participate? And then see what you get back, and have something like a little postcard where they just send it the yes and send it, make it easy for them. Yes.
Good at postcards.
Yeah, and that way you will have like at least a number of potential voters inside there. And you can probably use that data, you know, forward. You know, like people are gonna turn over, but you can imagine if you do the survey, it's gonna probably come back the same each time. You know what I mean? If it's 40%, it's always gonna probably be 40. It might go up though, you know.
But it's open-ended, why or why not? And maybe you get some feedback that way. But if you have voter reg forms right there that day when you're doing the survey, every time you go in, that's another touch point. You
Right.
never go in empty-handed.
Well, Jesse, you have a room full of people very invested in this process and willing to brainstorm and think through some things. We at Thrive and the San Francisco Peninsula People Power can help make those connections. Of course, we will end the meeting. You all get some time to share contacts and start working on that plan, right? And some of that will also include, we should include time at our voter engagement brainstorm to think about what you all are planning to do after you've figured out how you can collaborate with the people in the room. I want to acknowledge that there's one question there was a hand up from Valerie, but she put her hand down. Valerie, will you let us know if you still have a question?
She put it in chat.
She had to go.
Oh, I see the question. I see the comment by Valerie. And it says, Valerie, go ahead and unmute yourself and.
Sure. I just wanted to give context that LA County is doing
Audio.
this work.
Audio.
So,
there you go. Perfect. That's working.
okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So I just want to give context that LA County did have a flex vote center in the jails. And I've heard there's a rumor that they're going to have one in every single one this upcoming 2024 election. And so, yeah, people are doing this. It's possible. You just really have to get institutional buy-in. And I would say instead of voter registration forms, if you can teach them how to do that online, I heard a lot of places have tablets now, and Wi-Fi is kind of in and out and wonky, but at least if that's there, then the voter registration actual form doesn't have to become like a barrier. They can just all have access to that online. So just wanted to bring that up.
I would like,
Start with both.
I know in the state penitentiary, they have tablets, but in the local county jails, a lot of counties do not have tablets.
We have
San
few.
Francisco, okay.
Very
We have
few.
one tablet for every 6
People.
people who are incarcerated. They told us that
Okay.
last week.
I know
San
San
Mateo.
Francisco just introduced tablets, but then they were just recently taken away.
Oh, no.
Our jail has.
I just heard that they were.
I know
We go in
personally-
with
County.
both.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah.
The first time I voted, I was actually incarcerated in this county, but San Bruno jail. But the process was pretty straightforward. And I think to really accomplish this in this county, just transparency of like what's actually going on. I know we requested, access last year, but we're denied. And,
Different sheriff.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Well, I mean, it was requested rather late. I mean, and, they do have to do a process of, a background check, and there was, things about COVID, and, there were a lot of things going on last
But you
year.
can start now. So again, I think one of the questions we want to make sure that we get an answer to is what can we as the VEOAC and our component members do to support you into getting into the jails on a regular basis to do voter education, voter registration, all that kind of stuff.
With a plan,
Churches
as you
getting in, that's my understanding, right?
Yes, that would definitely be the question. And because you have the tablets in there, who would be able to, if we could do it, or to have on the tablets the voter information already built
You go to
in.
the website.
So they were able to just.
When we've done it previously, I mean, we worked with a sergeant there, and he said he put the info on the tablet, that says you can register to vote, and whatever he needed.
It's already there.
But can they get to websites that have like the voter information
I
guide?
don't know. I know they don't have internet access on the tablet. I was speaking to somebody about that last night, and
how can you register?
It's probably just view only.
These are details. Yeah, we don't want to get into the details.
Well, I really appreciate this conversation. I want to be mindful that we have 5 minutes, and you all have been very lovely for coming in person, and I love this energy. There is one, I don't know if you all have more presentation to go through.
No.
Do we really have to leave the room?
No.
You do not. We have the room. You can stay here till 4. That's when they're gonna officially kick us out. But I see there's one question virtually. Bill, there's 2 questions. Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up a little bit with what Paul and I think Jesse in particular, I heard them speak to this. And I think what's really powerful is you guys talked about lived experience. So I think part of the challenge, if you will, to be effective is to have trusted people that are in the county jail that people can feel comfortable with. Okay, because just somebody coming in that they don't know, they may not feel as comfortable. But I think aside from that, I and a number of other folks in this meeting have registered people in a variety of ways, but a lot of us have just gone in with our laptops. Like when we go into a high school and we register high school kids just through our own laptops, we go right into the county website for registration. We do it that way. And also a lot of folks in this meeting, fortunately, work very hard to get a completely different world going now in the jails with a new sheriff than we had a year ago. So that's different. And I think our access into the jail can be much more than it has been in the past. So I think we need to think of a strategy as how a group of us, maybe on a rotating basis, can go in and just meet with people that are incarcerated and see how we can help them get registered to vote. Because as some people have said in this meeting, part of it is education too. People need to be educated. I've met felons in the past on the street who just walk away from me and say, I'm a felon, I can't vote. And I say, whoa, that's not the case anymore. But they need to hear that, and maybe hear it from somebody like Jesse or Paul, who they entrust.
Bill, hang on. Yeah, so basically that's what the I don't know if we call it the sister group, the All of Us or None. I mean, I think the goal is to get folks from that organization into the jails, because again, they're what we call the trusted messengers. They've been through this. They can talk their language. They are going to be ones that they're going to listen to. What we can do here around the table is we can serve as a resource. So in terms of materials or training or support, that's what the rest of us could do. We're not the ones that should be going in to the county jail, because again, as you were saying, Bill, they don't know who we are. But you get someone, from All of Us or None, they can relate. They know how to.
But I disagree.
Okay.
Because if you came to sign me up, I'd be all nice, polite and chummy and I'd be like, you know, I would be, I'm telling you.
But would you
it's-
vote? You may sign
Now,
up,
that's
but
the
would you vote?
registration part. That's
Okay.
I'm talking about the registration
Okay.
part when it comes to, and one of the things, because we talked about the tablets and what's not on them, what's on them. What if, and I'll put this out there, what if you can push to have a, back a letter term, I like kiosk, but it's a tablet, special tablets that could be used at certain times of the day in certain sections of the jail for different parts of the jail where, you know, it's your time to come, if you want to register, you have this window, here's the registration tablet or your pod, right? You know, and then people, yeah, I'm gonna go register, right? And then it comes around again at a certain time, you know what I mean? Not every day, but at certain.
But I would say, Jesse, I agree with that, but with all due respect, a lot of people, they just, and I'm talking about people, whether you're in a jail or out of a jail, just people in general that I meet when I go to vote, help people vote, to register to vote, that they gotta still try to learn, they still need to understand, learn how to access it.
Bill,
Can
we're
you just
moving on
mute
to
him?
something
I'm
else.
going to interrupt you just a
second because it's 3:30. And I want to say thank you so much to the presenters because you guys were amazing. And the conversation absolutely doesn't need to end right now. You guys can stay in this room and continue, but I wanted to do a formal thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Came to this meeting because it is really important and you can see the collaboration is about to happen. So stay in this room, keep doing the collaboration, but thank you so much.
I really appreciate it, but before we go, I do want to give Mike, is that Mike? Is that you with the
Yeah.
raise? Okay, can you
Yeah.
give us
Very
your?
quick question.
Yes.
On the presentation at the beginning, Silicon Valley Translation Services, that's something where
Mike, I can call you after this meeting because that's all me for Thrive Alliance. But if anyone's interested in the free interpretation translation services for nonprofits in San Mateo County, contact me. I can connect you to an interpreter and translator in the next day or so. So Mike, give me a call.
That's not my question, all right. I just wanted to know if we pick our own or if they supply it.
So you can
I
ask
supply it.
Yahira afterwards.
I supply it, and I can work with you on
Okay.
deciding who you want to contract for that.
We're in the middle of
Right.
Silicon Valley. Somebody can figure out this tablet issue.
Okay, well, let's officially adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much again, Legal
Yeah,
Services.
thank you
for
so much
Connected
for
Children. Thank you for coming in person. Appreciate all that information. Thank you, everyone on Zoom, and we will follow up with all the materials through our follow-up email. Thank you all for coming.
Have a higher rate of people.
Thank you.
Restoring.
Yeah.